Hello everyone, my name's Daniel and I post videos about my life here in the west of Ireland. But this video is completely different. I recently lost a family member, a cousin. We weren't close. The last time that I saw him was actually at his wedding, which was a decade ago. But I have very fond memories of him, particularly growing up, as he was only 2 or 3 years older than me. But it's the circumstances of his death that prompted me to make this video, because tragically he took his own life. Although we weren't close, it was very shocking. More so because within my family, he always had a reputation for being the only one of us who'd ever really figured out how to be happy. He was very sociable and gregarious, always laughing, always with a story to tell, and always with lots of friends around him. And he was always trying to bring us together as a family. Even more tragically, he left behind 2 young children. I don't know the exact circumstances that led him to make that choice, but I do know he was unhappy in his job and under a great deal of stress, which at times I think became overwhelming. But this video isn't about my cousin. When something so terribly sad happens to someone who, even if you're not close to them, has always been a part of your world and is still so young, it really brings into stark relief the unhappiness that so many others must be feeling right now all around us. In Ireland, and I'm sure this is true of many other countries around the world too, suicide is the #1 killer of young men between the age of 15 and 34. The #1 killer. Not car accidents, not cancer, not COVID. It's a problem which disproportionately affects men of all ages, and it doesn't seem to be a problem which is going away. Now, I'm not naive enough to think that I could have solved the problems which caused my cousin to do what he did. He had a whole network of friends and family at the end of a phone line whenever he needed them. But my overwhelming reaction at being told what had happened was, I wish I could have spoken to him in the days and hours before he died. Even if my untrained, inept words would have made no difference whatsoever, I just wish I could have tried to give him some hope in that moment. And for the last week or so since this happened, I've been asking myself, if I had have had that chance, what would I have said? What would those untrained words have been? And it occurred to me that as someone with a platform, however small, and an audience, some of whom are perhaps also unhappy in their lives and watching my exploits as a form of escapism, that it might be worth saying those words in front of a camera. Because if there is a chance, however small, that talking about something like this might help someone, then I think it's worth doing. This video is not in any way monetized, and you won't find any outtakes at the end. It's just some words that I wish I could have said, that's all. I've never been suicidal, but I have been very unhappy, almost to the point of what I would consider despair. And I think that had a lot to do with feeling trapped in an unfulfilling life, with an immense pressure not to let go of the reins. It seems that we're channeled down a path of education, career, family, success. One responsibility stacked on top of another, and nobody ever really stops to ask if it's what we want. The pressure to conform to that path, to succeed in your education, to get that well-paid job or promotion, to find that perfect partner is, I believe, overwhelming at times for many of us. And although it's a path which a lot of people are able to walk, it's just not for everyone. I think in times of crisis, when those pressures become overwhelming, and I remember that feeling, it's very hard to see a way out. And to some people in that situation, the prospect of failing, of letting other people down, of disappointing those that care so much about them, is harder to bear than the immediate relief of ending their own lives. But like thousands of others out there, I'm living proof that there are other paths through life, because this is my path and it's working for me. I left a stable but deeply unrewarding job and career. I moved away from family and I pursued a dream purely on the basis that it was what I wanted to do. There was no long-term financial plan. There still isn't. But I'm happy because I'm doing what I love every day. Of course, I'm not suggesting for a second that my life choices would work for everyone in that situation. Just that there are ways out. They're probably scary, but fear of the unknown is healthy, as is failing. It's how we learn. If you ask old people what they regret, it's never failures in their life, it's always missed opportunities. As for disappointing loved ones, I promise you the people who really care about you just want you to be happy. And if you can make a change in your life, however drastic, which brings you happiness, then they will be proud of you for it. Even if they don't always express it or seem to understand, deep down they will be proud of you for it. And anyone who doesn't feel that way certainly isn't worth losing your life over. So in that moment of crisis, when pressing the off switch seems like the only option, take a moment and look around you. Become the hero of your own story, who, no matter how impossible the situation seems, always manages to find a way out. If you're willing to end your own life, then first be willing to let go of all the burdens which hold you back and ask yourself, what do I really want to do? What makes me happy? Or even, what might make me happy? Remember in that moment all the things which brought you joy throughout your life. The people, the experiences, the challenges, the places, the companions. And then make a plan. Write it down, commit it to paper, make it real. Don't focus on the obstacles. There are always obstacles. Focus on the solutions and give yourself permission to get excited about it. Because however scary, however doomed to fail, if you're standing on that precipice right now, then what have you got to lose by looking a different way? An enormous catalyst for change in my life was the simple act of packing a bag and setting off on an adventure. It took me to another continent where I experienced a different way of life. And because of all the amazing people that I met, my perspective changed. I felt braver, and ultimately I was able to reimagine what my own future might look like. Because one thing I'm certain of is that our life is meant to be a roller coaster. It's meant to be full of ups and downs, highs and lows, which means that no matter how bad it might feel right now, there will be joy around the corner. There will. But don't wait for it to find you. Go out and make it happen. Don't worry about letting anyone down, because you won't, or failing, because it's okay to fail. Just walk the walk and see where it takes you. I'm not a spiritual person, and this video isn't about spirituality. But one thing which I do often reflect on is how life just keeps on going after you die. It's like a train with people constantly jumping on and jumping off again. A few people on that train might notice when you're gone, but the train doesn't care. It just keeps chugging away onto the next horizon, forever. On the surface, that might sound a bit unfair and a bleak reflection, but to me, it's liberating because it makes me feel blissfully insignificant. And I like that feeling. I'm no more important in the grand scheme of things than a worm in the soil. So why the hell should I worry about impressing people or being successful? For as long as I can hang on to my seat on that train, I'm going to do everything I can to enjoy the ride, because that is all that matters. A few final things that I want to say. The suicide of an otherwise healthy person because of a crisis in their life is not the same as assisted suicide because of chronic or terminal illness. Suicide is not morally wrong. It's just terribly, terribly sad. My cousin owned his own life, and however tragic, he had the right to end it. I just dearly wish I could have had the opportunity to help him keep living. And if you know someone who might be suffering, who might feel the way that my cousin must have felt in the months and weeks leading up to this, then don't judge them. Don't make them feel trapped. Support them in whatever direction, whatever path they need to take. And tell them how proud you are of them. Finally, if you yourself are standing on that precipice, then pick up the phone and speak to someone who is trained to offer help and support. But more importantly, someone who will listen for as long as you need them to. And don't underestimate the power that you have, that we all have, to bounce back from unhappiness. I often envy our wild ancestors. For all the hardship they faced every day, all they really had to do was survive. Imagine standing in a sunlit glade surrounded by trees and ancient forest, owning only what was on your back, with your best friend by your side, ready to set off and discover the world with you. Your only job to live each day. If you can do that, you're as successful as anyone else on the face of the planet. And every new morning that you wake up, you get to start from scratch all over again. Just imagine that feeling. One day, you're going to die, that's for sure. But right now, you can hear the wind in the leaves, you can see your breath on the morning air, and you can feel the sun against your skin. You're alive. And what a lucky bastard that makes you. Take care, everyone.